Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are Harvard University Employees Credit Union, and we are joined in today's presentation for Gentreo, talking to your family about estate planning. Thank you so much again for being here. And without any further ado, I'm going to kick it over to Gentreo and Julie Fry. We're very happy to have you here. Take it away, Julie.
Great, thank you all. So I'm gonna, we'll give it a minute or two for everybody to get logged on. But before we get started, I'll give you a little bit of a background of myself. And then from there, we'll jump in and talk a little bit about what estate planning is very briefly, and then give you some practical tools on how to specifically address estate planning with your families during the holidays. So that way, if you only get a chance to visit your families every once in a while, you have some ideas of how to address things, ways to bring things up, and how not to overwhelm them. Because we don't want you, and the goal is not for you to go and be like, pass the cranberry, how do you feel about your will? And are you going to leave me money? No. But what we do want to do is give you ideas of some of the things to look for, what estate planning is, some of the things that you need to make sure that you're getting yourself prepared for, so that in the event of emergency, you know what to do. You know how to help your parents, your aunt, your uncle, those people that you eventually will be caring for. And so we'll walk you through that. A couple of logistics things. We are going to be recording today's session. So just to let you all know, the session is going to be recorded. Secondly, I'm going to do a brief presentation. After the presentation, we will leave some time for questions. So if you have questions either on caregiving, talking with your families, or estate planning, I can address those. And then we can also, we'll talk a little bit at the end as well about how you have estate planning as a benefit brought to you by the credit union. And so we want to make sure that you all are aware of what tools are available for you, and we give you the action items to take advantage of those tools. So real quickly, again, my name is Julie Fry. I'm one of the founders of Gentreo. And my background is actually in elder care planning, and caregiving. So I used to work down in Washington, D.C. and lead the National Association for Home Care and Hospice. And I founded the National Private Duty Association, and then got into developing caregiver apps and working with families who were caring for not only their elderly parents, but their elderly loved ones, whether it be relatives or friends, families, etc. From that, we had a lot of questions about estate planning coming up, and the fact that this is such an underserved market, and people really need tools to make sure that they aren't being left with a mess. And we got started with Gentreo, and we've been around for about 5 years at Gentreo, and we are a nationally award-winning online estate planning company. I kind of equate us to TurboTax for estate planning. And not only that, but during the pandemic, we were one of the very few families that the pandemic was a positive for in general, because our father unfortunately had Alzheimer's. And so the pandemic, the whole world shut down. And so it allowed us to move from the Boston area to State College, Pennsylvania, and act as his caregiver. And it was interesting because we had been through that. We developed these documents, but when you care for someone with Alzheimer's, where you're needing to use your power of attorney, healthcare proxy, we ended up using trusts, wills, the whole bit. When you actually live through it, I found that I learned a ton. And so it was a very informative process, and it was a great opportunity to act as a caregiver. With that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. One last thing. If you do have questions, feel free to put those in the chat, and I'll try to answer those as we go along. And then we'll address any that I didn't address during the presentation at the end of the presentation. So with that, let's get started talking a little bit about what estate planning is. So what we do at Gentreo is we want to make sure that we provide you with those tools so that you can provide an estate plan that protects all that you love: your family, your parents, your loved ones, your children, your pets, how to protect your assets. And so Gentrio is built so that you can go in and create legally binding documents that make sure that they hold all of your wishes, and you can legally have the documents needed to uphold those wishes. Estate planning is so important because without an estate plan, you can just from the assets alone. Number one, you can lose 3 to 8% of your assets because of dealing with probate courts and lawyers, etc. This estate planning you can do fairly easily, fairly quickly on your own time if you have those tools. And money aside, for me, the most important thing is making sure that you control who makes decisions for you and what those decisions are. So, for example, if you don't want to be on life support, or you want somebody specifically to make the decision about life support, or if you want to make sure that you have somebody who makes decisions for you about your finances, that you have those legal documents to make sure that your choices are understood and are upheld by your loved ones. And again, what we're trying to do is make things as easy as possible because you want to avoid the fights. Address it now, because for us, this became a huge issue when we did my dad's healthcare proxy. Before he dealt with Alzheimer's, and he filled out a healthcare proxy where he said that he didn't want life sustaining measures. And when it came time and he was very sick and ended up with pneumonia, and he had severe dementia and couldn't talk, etc., we were able to go back to those documents and we were able to give him pain medication and not treat him with life sustaining measures. And for my mom, that was so important because it changed the narrative. So she didn't have to make the decision to pull the plug. This is something they had already talked about, they had already addressed. And while it was really hard and, a tragic time for our family and very emotional time for our family, it was something that we could go back to and say, this is dad's decision. And this is dad speaking for what he wanted. And so we want to avoid those family conflicts, and we want to make sure that you are providing tools so that you know what people's choices are. Couple of quick things. Number one, everyone over the age of 18 should have a basic estate plan. That's your healthcare proxy. We talked a bit about a will, so that way your family can avoid probate, or probate goes very quickly. And then if you needed a power of attorney, we'll go through what all these are down the road. But then also that emergency plan. What do you do? Where do you find information? Where do you store information? So in the event of an emergency, you know who to contact and what to do. And what we are doing at Gentreo is we help you through all of the many of life circumstances or milestones. So if you do have a milestone, for instance, if you start caring for a loved one, what does that look like? How can we help you? What kind of documents do you want to help prepare for the person that you're caring for? And then also, we want to make sure that you have a plan in place, your family has a plan in place, so that when those emergencies happen, and unfortunately they are going to happen, everybody knows where to turn to. You have those documents. You don't need to get those lawyers involved, and it makes it an easier process during a really stressful time. Before getting involved in estate planning, I did a lot with caregiving. And with caregiving, it really falls to the caregiver to make sure that not only are they doing day-to-day activities, but all of a sudden they have to care for their parents, their loved ones as well. So what we want to do is make sure that we give you tools and help provide you with conversations to have so that you can prepare for those emergencies. So, couple of things. Number one, you want to make sure that you start to anticipate your needs. If you know that your parents are aging, make sure that you have conversations with them ahead of time. And when you do this, make sure that you're not overwhelming them. And we'll go through that a little bit as well. Make sure that you're prepared both financially and legally. So this is a great opportunity for you to go in and work with your credit union representatives, because when you go in and work with them, if your parents have a credit union membership, maybe you want to make sure that you're on one of their policies, their checking account, their savings account. Make sure that you know where they're banking. If you have the ability and they so choose, make sure that they're putting you on their bank accounts now while they're mentally capable. So that if all of a sudden you do have to start paying their bills, if you need help with their taxes, etc., writing checks for them, paying their mortgage, you have the ability to do that. And that's all set up now before you actually really need that. And then also make sure you start planning for some of the long-term care issues. Couple of things. Number one, there are many options that are available right now with long-term care. If you're in the position where you need to start looking at long-term care options, there are a few resources that are available to everyone. One of them is called the Agency on Aging. Every state, city, and county, it has an agency on aging that is dedicated to making sure that they help provide you with information. So on Gentreo, we have information on how do you prepare legally for your parents to get long-term care. The Agency on Agings will have resources that are in your area, and they'll have resources of not only what those facilities are, but also ways that you can tap into financial and caregiving support so that if you do need help, you can find a local resource, because finding those local resources are incredibly important. A great example of this, we were actually looking for an adult daycare facility for our father, because before the pandemic happened, where they would come and pick him up and take him for a few hours, feed him lunch. He'd get to go talk to other veterans, etc. And then they would bring him home, and it would give my mom a break or respite time. And it was something that was very low cost and really would have provided a really great option. Unfortunately, a pandemic happened and I became the respite provider, but there are resources that are out there. And a lot of times, your agency on aging will be the first resource for you. I do want to give you one caveat with that. A lot of the agencies on aging are very overwhelmed. And so do make sure that you know that this is not a short process. It can take a long time, but if they don't have resources, they can point you in areas that do. And there are some great national associations that are out there that make sure that they track local resources as well. Some of those associations are the National Caregiving Alliance, the National Council on Aging, and the National Family Caregivers Association. If you Google a Family Caregivers Association, that's a great place to get started, or the National Council on Aging, with what your local resources are. Because what you do want to do is make sure that you know what's available, and you know and have you can anticipate what your costs are going to be, what the logistics are, and really what resources that you can get based on what your parents have. This is very important because most people don't know that most long-term care is not paid for by insurance. So if you have something called long-term care insurance, which a lot of parents do, and now it's become less popular because of the price, the long-term care insurance will help provide for in-home care, like home care, private duty care. They also will provide with help with a continuing care retirement community or an assisted living facility. Most of these things, or a nursing home, most of these things, if you don't have that long-term care, the vast majority of insurances do not pay for that, like Medicare and Medicaid. But you need to check your parents' individual or loved ones' individual plans to see what they do have coverage for. So do make sure that you're reaching out and finding out what type of insurance, what type of coverage your parents have now, so that number one, when the time comes, you know what to use that they have. And then number two, you know what their financial implications are. If you do not have the insurance, you do want to make sure that you start looking at providing some type of financial protection for them. And this can come in the form of things like irrevocable trust, which an irrevocable trust, which Gentreo does not do. You would want to go in and consult an estate planning attorney. Gentreo can help you find an estate planning attorney for a discounted rate. And what they will do is help you put together a legal entity where you can put your assets, which then allows you to transfer those assets to the legal entity. And if you can hold it there for 5 years, when your parents, after 5 years, your parents most likely can qualify for Medicaid. When you're dealing with an irrevocable trust, we want to make sure that you're dealing with understanding what the implications of those are. So we do encourage people to talk to financial planners and to estate planning attorneys. And then the next big point is don't wait for a crisis. So much of this in talking to your family is all about making sure that you're preparing yourself now for when the unfortunate events happen. So if you do have something like our father had dementia and and started losing his memory, so we had to make sure that we had access to passwords. We knew who his banker was. We knew who his the accountant was, his tax preparer. We wanted to make sure that we knew everything, what resources that he had, so that we didn't have to ask those questions and have to fight to find those answers after he unfortunately did lose his memory. So make sure that you are preparing ahead of time, creating that home so that we call it the little black book or our digital vault, that you can store that information so that everybody in your family and those people that you choose to have that information have access to it no matter where they are. And then one of the things that you want to do is make sure that you're looking for trigger and warning signs. So it's most people, and especially as people age, will start to show signs of um, dementia, the fact that they need help, the fact that they need additional resources. And so these are things that you want to start keeping an eye on. And so, for instance, are they starting to become more forgetful? Our father, he went to go run down and he hated his cell phone always. And he went to go run to the gas station to get a gallon of gas for the mower. And 45 minutes later, he wasn't back, which put us all into a panic, which we realized. And then finally, after 2 hours, and I was calling the cops, and it was awful, he came back and he said, I was going for a drive and the mountains were so beautiful. I just went for a drive and kept driving. Then he finally realized where he was. And then we had to deal with taking away the car keys the next day, immediately after that. But you want to make sure that you're watching for signs of forgetfulness. We want to make sure that when you do have the opportunity to visit their home, just double check and make sure that you're not noticing any bills that aren't being paid. Make sure that you're checking in and have the ability to jump in, take a look if, like, are they paying their cable bill? Are they making sure that they are paying their taxes? And then also, how are they managing their money? If you have the ability for your parents who are starting to show signs of dementia, I very much encourage you to go in and work with your credit union, work with their bank, just to make sure that you are on their policy so that you can keep an eye out for not only are they paying their bills, but are there signs of financial fraud? So senior fraud is a real thing and it's a real danger. And unfortunately, there are tons of people who prey on seniors. that you want to make sure that you keep an eye out for. A lot of times this will come in not only those scams that we're familiar with of, I your granddaughter is caught, you need to wire me money, or you need to send me a wire check, etc. Not only are those the immediate asks, but also you want to make sure that they aren't doing things out of the goodness of their own heart that you want to keep an eye on. For example, make sure that a lot of the donations that they get asked for, which everyone is asked for donations, especially around the holidays, they aren't giving out donations that they would not have otherwise given. So make sure that you're keeping an eye on, are they making large donations? Are they making sure they're balancing their checkbook? Are they making sure that their typical routine is followed? If that isn't, you need to make sure that you start addressing those issues ASAP, and you make sure that you understand what their desires are. Because um, we have a friend who said that he wrote an article about making sure that he gives away his wealth while he's still living. And so he's actively making the choice to give away his wealth. And it's not a signal of him having any type of issue. It's a signal of him making those choices. So make sure you discuss those choices with them. Also, when you do go and visit their home, one of the things you really want to make sure you do is take a look at how they're living their lives. And so, for example, are there missing medications? Do they have their medications organized? There are many opportunities for you to work with doctors. You can get a healthcare proxy, which has a HIPAA release, which allows you to speak with your parents' doctors. You can go in and use that healthcare proxy or HIPAA release to work with their pharmacies to make sure that they're picking up pills, to make sure that, and nowadays, most pharmacies have, and most doctors have online patient gateways where you can go in and take a look and see when the last time they went to the doctors were, or when the last time they accessed their medications were, refilled their prescriptions, etc. And this is something that you want to have a discussion with them. And you want to make sure that a lot of people value their privacy. So you need to walk a fine line between addressing and taking over and bursting in and demanding that you know everything, but at the same point making sure, or working with your doctor to say, listen, my dad is a really private person, he doesn't want to give me any information, but if you get a HIPAA release with the doctor, and then say, if there are issues, if you're noticing things that he's not doing, please call my attention to it, and make sure you reach out to your parents' doctors to make sure that they know who, either if you need to be in contact, if they need to be in contact with you or someone else in their family, that information is there, and they know who to contact. So if your dad or mom does have a problem, that they have that resource to go to. And then also, when you do go visit family, and when you're going in and you're visiting family for uh, brief periods of time, it's a great idea to be able to address some of these things ahead of time, or know that you're looking for these things. But you don't necessarily need to use that time to do a full-on intervention, or you don't necessarily need to use that time to, make it a very confrontational period. What you do want to do is make sure that you start looking for signs that are going to cause you to draw additional attention to them, and or there are times that you do need to start taking action. If you do need to start taking action, what you want to do is make sure that you prepare and talk to your family and the support people ahead of time, before before you address your parents. And with that, what you want to do is use all that information that you've already thought about. what are they missing medications? Are there issues with their finances? Are they making sure that they keep their daily lives or daily routines up to date? Bring all of that information to the table and make sure that you have one person who is typically the primary caregiver who can really address not only what they're seeing, but ask the other people who are in. A lot of times we do Zoom calls. In that call, to say, what are you noticing? Is it, how bad are things getting? If things are getting, we are having an issue, who is dealing with it? Make sure you have that identified who that typical caregiver is, and then make sure that they're going out, have an idea of dressing an agenda to say, what is everybody else dealing with? Are there issues that we aren't aware of? And how can we open communication amongst your group? And this is the one thing that is really important, because having just one caregiver is not usually a feasible option because it takes so much time. And as seniors get older, a lot of times they need the 24/7 care. So, what you want to do is make sure that everybody has suggestions, people know what their roles are, and people understand what to look for so that they can communicate with that group. So, some of the topics that you want to discuss when you are meeting with a group of concerned loved ones. Number one, again, those medical conditions, making sure that they're taking their medications, making sure are they eating, making sure are they going to doctor's appointments, getting refills, etc. Making sure that you know who, if people do have a question, who is the healthcare proxy? Like, who is the person who's going to make those healthcare decisions for your parent if you can't do it for them? Number two, the financial implications. We've talked about this before. Not only, again, do you want to make sure that you are aware of what type of resources do your parents have? Do they have Medicaid? Do they have Medicare? Do they have a supplemental? You also want to make sure that you have any information about additional financial resources. You know, do they have a 401k? Do they have a pension, etc.? Um, Also with this, I do want to take a quick note. If your parents were veterans, if your father or your mother served in the military, I very much encourage you to get in touch with the VA and the Veterans Authority now. It takes a while to make sure that you get your parents enrolled with the VA. But again, speak from personal experience. Our father served in the Navy, and as he started getting dementia, the VA was an amazing resource. We didn't use them for all of his care with his doctors, but they were able to send us his prescriptions at a fraction of the cost. They were able to provide us with huge amount of resources, like for instance, a caregiving respite service where they would have people come in and help provide my mom with rest. Number two, they were also able to provide them with just his basic needs. For example, he needed Depends, he needed bed pads, and he needed a hospital bed. The VA stepped in and provided at no cost to our family all of those resources. They came in, they set up a hospital bed so that when he needed to be propped up or he wouldn't roll out of bed, etc., those resources were there and provided with them. But it takes a while for you to get enrolled in the VA system. So even if they're healthy now, if they were part of the military, get involved with them now because there are some tremendous resources there. And they've served our country. And so it's time for us to help serve them. So please take advantage of that. And the VA has a good system online. And if you don't get the help that you need, they actually have a good customer service line that's a national line that can help you out, because the VA is notorious for having issues and they're working very hard to clean those up. Um, Getting back into some of the things that you can discuss with your group, again, make sure that you're taking a look at your parents' financial, pardon me, their lifestyle, that physical and emotional aspect of their daily lives. So, for instance, are they getting up and are they active? Are they making sure that they're communicating with their friends? Are they changing who they talk to? Are they making sure that they're not isolating themselves? Is there an opportunity for you to use new technologies? For example, my mother ended up, after my father passed away, she moved to Illinois. And so we're back in Boston. So we use things like um, we have a phone system that can call into her. She has the ability, we dial her in through Skype so that she can see my nephew's football game. We use technology to make sure that we're an active part of her life on a day-to-day basis. So make sure that you're looking at new technologies so that you can be a part of their lives. And then finally, and for us, make sure that you have those legal documents in place now. Get your legal documents in place so that you can get things like your power of attorney and your healthcare proxy, your will, your trust. You make sure that you have the legal documents not only created and executed or made legal in your state, but you all know what those decisions are. You all know what those documents are, and you all have access to them. Getting a little bit more into what an estate plan is and what those legal documents are. There are five main ones that I want to talk about today. The first one is that healthcare proxy. And a lot of times in Massachusetts, we call it a healthcare proxy. A lot of other places call it a power of attorney for healthcare, but that will include things like your HIPAA release, your which will allow you to talk to someone else's doctors, whether that be your parents, or like you can also get a HIPAA release or a healthcare proxy for your adult children so that if they go off to college, you can talk to their doctors, help them schedule appointments, etc. Um, you can limit in the Gentreo healthcare proxy, not only what decisions your healthcare proxy can make for you, but you can also make sure that you have an alternate healthcare proxy if that person is no longer available or isn't available when needed. You can make sure and set up what your healthcare choices are. For example, do you want artificial respiration, nutrition, etc., if you need it? Or do you want to appoint someone to make those decisions for you? Um, for me, I actually, when I got started with Gentreo, I filled out the healthcare proxy and I was like, pull the plug. Absolutely. I don't want to, I don't want life sustaining treatments, XYZ. And then unfortunately, my cancer came back and it was a whole new ball game. And so I was able to easily update my healthcare proxy to change my choices to say, maybe we should have the healthcare proxy, who's my sister, make those decisions for me. And so you want to make sure that not only do you know what those decisions are, but if something happens and there's a trigger, there's a new health scare, or your choices have changed, that you want to make sure that you can update those at any time. Your power of attorney for finances is very, very powerful document. What this does is this really allows you to set up what your who can help you manage your finances. And the power of attorney for finances allows you with Gentreo to set it up and monitor and grant authority two ways. One, by time, like do you want it indefinitely or do you want it during a certain period? But then secondly, also by authority. So if you want to grant your child access to your checking account or to sell your car, but not to change wills or not to change some of your decisions on or sell homes, etc. There is a very detailed way that you can go in and you can set what the authorities that you grant your someone access to. And then not only that, but you can also make sure that you can say who the alternative person would be, so that if you do need somebody to make this carry out financial um, decisions for you, you know who can do it, who can do it in their stead. And then not only that, but they have the legal authority to do that. With the power of attorney for finances, it's very important that you keep that up to date and you renew it every 2 years. A lot of credit unions, a lot of financial institutions require that your POA is updated every couple of years. And not only that, but you want to make sure that you're following the step-by-step rules to make sure that they're executed or made legal in your state. Thankfully, most of your credit unions actually have a notary on available at the branches. And so what I would do as a member of the Harvard University Employee Credit Union, you have an amazing opportunity to create your documents, call your credit union and make sure that you schedule a time and make sure that you know that there's a notary available so you can come in, get all of your documents notarized, make sure that they're executed so that you know that everything is there and set and ready and you can take advantage of that. And make sure that you do call your credit union because they do have some great resources for you. Also, is the what most everyone is familiar with is your last will and testament. Your last will and testament. Oh, one quick thing: your healthcare proxy and your power of attorney really only are effective while you're still living. So once you pass away, they become they're no longer used, and that's where your will takes hold or your trust, etc. But for people to help you or for you to help your parents while they're still living, you're going to need a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy while they're still living. Once they pass away, your last will and testament or a pour over will or living trust, etc., that's when that really takes effect. And once someone passes away, your will allows you to set up what your choices are. Who do you want to leave specific gifts to? For example, do you want to leave specific gifts to your children? Do you want to leave your remaining asset to your children? Do you want to leave it equally? Do you want to leave gifts and you want to include people like your friends, your family, etc. With Gentreo, we walk you through the process so that you make those decisions, so that you have the ability to say what you want to have happen with not only your assets, like who gets your grandma's engagement ring or your car, your home, your checking account, but also who oversees, most importantly, if you have minor children or special needs children and you need who are their guardians, who are their backup guardians. So making sure that you protecting your children. And then also making sure that you protect your pets. So with your pets, you can provide not only who can care for your pets, but you also have the ability to develop a pet trust, which allows you to provide financially for those people who are caring for your pets. You cannot leave money directly to your dog or to your cat or your horse. But what you do is you legally leave money for the care of that pet. And that is called a pet trust. And with Gentreo, you can set up your pet trust or you can set up a living trust as well. So your living trust is basically a legal entity that holds assets that allows you to transfer those assets upon your death very easily without having to go through probate. So it does a couple of things. Number one, it avoids probate, which is huge because if you need to access that money quickly or your family needs to access that money quickly, they can do so without having to get the courts involved. And then number two, it also provides you with a level of privacy because the living trusts aren't open. Whereas if you do have to probate your will, that it becomes a legal court document that gets filed and is available to everyone versus your living trust, which is its own entity, which does not become public knowledge. Those are the main documents that are involved in an estate plan. And with Gentreo, you can really easily create those documents and make sure that they represent not only what your decisions are, but you can also help your parents create those documents so that your parents are covered. A note about creating documents for others. It is perfectly legal for you to help your parents create your documents under a few circumstances. Number one, they need to have the mental capacity to make sure that they are making these decisions. So it's really important that not only are they making these decisions, but they understand and they have the mental capacity to do so. Why this is important is that if the will is ever challenged, etc., you want to make sure that when the will was created, that everyone within your care group, within your family, understood that the person making that will understood what the decisions were and the implications of those decisions. If you do think that it's going to be a contentious process after someone passes away, we very much encourage you to contact your parents' doctors and their medical team and make sure that they're providing a statement that says they're of sound mind and body or sound mind to make sure that if things are questioned, you have a legal document saying that yes, they are capable of making their own decisions. Also, when you help someone create estate planning documents or any documents, you need to make sure that they're not forced to do so. So, for example, you can't go in and you can't say, um, you will divide your assets equally amongst your children. You will do X, Y, Z. You can't create and make the decisions for them. The people who are making those wills, making those power of attorneys or healthcare proxies, they need to make the decisions on their own and they can't be forcibly made so. If they are forced to make those decisions, the courts get involved, lawyers can get involved, and becomes a very expensive process. So do make sure that if there are any questions, that you're making sure that you have witnesses involved, that you get your parents or your loved one's medical team involved. Because if you do expect that it is going to be contentious, an ounce of prevention now is going to prevent a ton of heartache when the estate is being settled.
Hi, Julie. Just want to give you a quick time check. We have about 15 minutes left. It's about 12:43, okay?
Perfect. Actually, thank you so much. Because as you can tell, my big thing, I love caregiving, so I love to talk about it. But thank you for that update.
No
Couple of quick
worries.
things. Make sure that when you talk with your family, that you're involving the entire family in developing not only their estate plan, but their care plan as well. And this is really important because if you do exclude people, it can cause a lot of strife down the road. Number two, again, make sure that everyone is comfortable when you meet and you talk with them, whether it be, their home, your parents' home, meeting rooms, restaurants, etc. And then also make sure that you realize today's technologies can help you tremendously. With Gentreo, we have the digital vault that allows you to go in and make sure that you can upload and share information and that whoever you're sharing, whoever is the user decides who shares the information with them. So we don't sell the information and you decide if you share all the information with your daughter that's 3 states away or just a bit of information with your next door neighbor who cares for your pet. You decide who has access to what. And when they go in and create a team membership as part of your circle, that's free for them to access that information. Talking a little bit more about Gentreo. So Gentreo itself really our goal is to make estate planning available to everyone. As I mentioned, we're all state specific and we're legally binding in all 50 states. I equate us to the TurboTax of estate planning. which allows you to go in and easily create those documents or create documents for your loved ones. Then once you get them executed, and again, touch base with your credit union, go in, schedule an appointment, see if they have a notary that's when they're available. Make sure that you get your documents executed, securely upload them and share them with your family. And not only you want to prepare your documents, but also general information, passwords, information about real estate, information about travel if they're going to go off on a cruise, information about their contacts, like their professional service providers. Make sure that you have that information available so that when an emergency it does happen, that you are prepared. With Gentreo, all of your documents are included, including the will, the living trust, the power of attorney, healthcare proxy, your pet trust, your pet documents, and the emergency card. And then also, we help you not only create the documents, but also use the documents. Have those personalized game plans, have the idea of what to do if a milestone happens, like having a new child, caring for a parent, having a medical emergency, etc. And if you need tech coaching, we are not the coaches are not lawyers and we don't give legal advice. We can help make sure that you know how to use Gentreo so that you can provide the legal documents, the information, so that everybody knows where to turn and that you are able to turn over and prepare your legacy for when it's needed. The great thing is we partnered with the Harvard Employee Credit Union so that you can get Gentreo at a discounted rate and you can call your credit union or go online to their website to find out what opportunities are available for you. With that, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions so that if you do have questions, I can address those. And if there are questions that I've not addressed, or if you need additional information on talking to your family or preparing your estate plan or general information about caregiving, I can help send you those resources. And you can email info@gentreo.com, or you can email me personally at julie@gentreo.com, which my personal email address is julie@gentreo.com. I haven't seen any questions come up, but I do want to open up the call for questions to see how we can help you.
I do see the first question come in, and it says, could you please elaborate regarding the threshold for protected assets in shared accounts? I heard it was roughly 120K.
Yep. And so this actually depends on where those accounts are. So with the and this I would actually defer to your credit union. I would encourage you to call your credit union because the FDIC actually requires the accounts to be insured up to a certain limit. So for instance, we've actually unfortunately seen some banks fail and the federal government requires those banks to actually have a each account insured up to a minimum amount. And so do contact your credit union directly. And one of the bankers there can help make sure that each one of your accounts are actually covered and insured and uh, eh, for which account. And then the next question is, do funds move from retirement account towards any of these thresholds? Or is this just referred to the assets that are signed, as in deeds or in liens? Again, unfortunately, I am going to have to, I do want to refer you to the credit union and to your personal bank, your bankers there, because it really depends on what the specific account is. And so I hate giving the lawyer answer, but you want to make sure that because it depends on what's happening with the deeds or the liens. And so you do want to make sure that you're dealing directly with the credit union. So make sure that you're calling your credit unions with that. And then um, in terms of, are the funds susceptible to 5-year look back for assets for long-term care and for the spend down of assets? Depends on your state. And so, for example, in the state of Massachusetts, the um, most of the accounts that are in your parent's name are included in the spend down. This is where you do want to contact. And again, if you want, email me directly and I can refer you to some websites that will actually show you piece by piece what is a part of that look back. But basically anything that's covered under, that's owned by the parent or by that individual counts towards the spend down up to a certain point. So for example, when our parents did it, our parents could have one car, could have the home, and then the home, that my mom could live in the home as long as she was alive. And then once she passed away, then the state could come back and get the value of the home after my mom, who had the right of residency, passed away. So each one is slightly different in each state. So if you shoot me an email at julie@gentreo.com, I can send you directly to the link, what counts. But if you put everything into an irrevocable trust, and that's again where you do want an attorney to get involved to help you with that. The irrevocable trust, the assets, retirement accounts, pensions, your home, we had cars in there, we had checking accounts in there. After 5 years, anything that was transferred into that trust does not count towards the spend down. So you do have to create a separate legal entity and they have to be divided in or sent into that. Another quick question: is the power of attorney for finances different than being a beneficiary on the account? Yes, because basically the power of attorney for finances does two things. That allows you to go in and basically make decisions for people, to take over, write checks for them, or whatever resources that they actually are granted. The beneficiary of the account is if somebody passes away, that's who actually gets the money from the account. So the power of attorney for finances really happens while people are still alive, the beneficiaries after someone has passed away. And then again, if for those of you who are going through this right now, shoot me an email. I'm happy to talk one-on-one with you to help. We're not going to give you specific legal advice, but I'll point you towards the resources, because as you've gone through this, I know I've gone through this myself. It's a huge amount of work and it's a lot of information to know, and I'm happy to help point you in the right direction. Okay, so any other information or questions that you need, again, my email is julie@gentreo, which is GENTREO.com, or you can email info@gentreo. And also make sure that you're going to your credit union, because the credit union has a lot of great resources. They're on their website. They actually have a estate planning section that gives you access to articles, information specifically for you and as a member of the credit union. And then also it gives you access to what resources and tools the credit union has available to you. And it's, for me, I'm very excited about working with the Harvard Employee Credit Union, because they make sure that you have tools so that not only do you know what to do, but you have tools to take action. Again, call your credit union, go in, they have resources, make sure that you're utilizing those. And if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us.
Thank you so much, Julie. I'm not seeing any new. Oh,
Oh, and FYI, in the webinar chat before you all log off, they put both the email address and as well as the website address for your, that the Harvard Credit Union has, and the website address for digital estate plan, so that you can see where some of those tools are. So please make sure you, before you shut this webinar off, that you're grabbing those addresses.
Perfect. Thank you, Julie.
Great. Thank you all very much, and good luck, because I know this is a very trying time. So have a good day and happy holidays.
Have a good one. Thank you so much, Julie.
All
Thank you
right,
so much for
bye-bye.
joining us. Bye-bye.